Hi everyone, it's Victoria here, and welcome to the podcast. Before we begin, I wanted to let you know about the free courses the Victoria Stilwell Academy has available to enroll in right now for dog geeks like you. Just go to vsdogtrainingacademy.com and click the enroll button, and you'll see the free course options. That's vsdogtrainingacademy.com. See you there. Hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast, and happy Thanksgiving. Today, I gather with my team around the holiday table to discuss the dog trainer's secret sauce when it comes to dealing with problematic dog behavior. We tackle dog behavior issues using an age-old, perhaps long-forgotten skill that you can do on your own. I think you're going to be really thankful that you listened today. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our monthly chat, and it is the week of Thanksgiving for those of you in the United States. Happy Thanksgiving. And as we are gathering around the table with family and friends, we're giving thanks about all the good things in our lives, including our pets. But we also wanted to talk about, which we're going to kind of like get onto that in a bit, but I'm excited to have the fabulous team with me again. And so welcome Tiffany and Lorena, Jamie, Laura, Maya, Wendy, and Ali. And these are my Positively and VSA team. They are fantastic minds of information. And we like to take topics each month and talk about various things regarding relationship with your dog and other dog training stuff. So today we're going to focus on, I think this is actually something that isn't given its due very much, but needs to be. Because I find that certainly when I'm coaching people on and off TV, that most people will focus on what their dogs are doing wrong. And in focusing on what their dogs are doing wrong, they forget to mark behavior they like or focus on stuff that the dog is doing that they like. Now, when I use these words, wrong or right, that is when we look at behavior from our point of view, from a human point of view. Remember, the dog behavior is behavior. Dogs just are. And so we're the ones that put the labels on good or bad behavior. We call behavior right or wrong. But we are just looking at from this human perspective of how can we be better guardians for our dogs by actually saying, hey, yeah, job well done. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Doing this with my own dogs, we're not saying you can never say, hey, no, stop that. But we are saying, what can you, if you've got your dog that's settling right now, for example, what can you do to tell them, hey, good job? And I have my Chihuahua, Jasmine, and she's just on the back of the sofa right now. You can't see her. I could like pan over, which I'm going to do now for those of you watching. There you see. And so once she settles, I just say, hey, good job. And that's kind of me saying, yeah, that's what I like. And she likes it too. So it's kind of like, it just makes our relationship pretty clear. And also, I think she likes it. I think she likes that feedback. So I want to open this to the group. And as we talk through this, I think they're going to share some great tips on maybe how you can perfect your relationship, increase your relationship by giving your dog some better feedback. So take it away.
Yeah, I really do believe this is a secret sauce of dog training. And I think it's something that's obvious to dog trainers, but it can be such a light bulb for clients. And one big example for me is that clients will call me and their dog is pulling on leash and it just drives them nuts. And we go out for a walk and the dog is pulling really hard. And then we get to a spot where the dog is sniffing and they pull the dog along. They're like, come on. And they keep going. And I think, oh my gosh, like if you want your dog to stop, why don't we embrace the sniffing? One part of this is that we want to embrace dogs for who they are. And, so I've seen sweatshirts before that say, let them sniff. But it's not only just about encouraging your client, like, oh, sniffing is really good. I think people hopefully are starting to get that picture now that, like, yes, I should let my dog sniff. This is how they socialize, how they interact, how they de-stress. But I also think that it's something for the client to think about of like, where are you going on this walk? Why do we have to walk around the block? And I get stuck in that sometimes. I think, okay, this is where I want to go on my walk. This is what I want to do. And I need to get back in a certain amount of time. And so we pull our dogs along because we're like, I need to walk this way. So it's one thing.
Send them a memo?
I think the dog could send them a memo. No, just kidding. And the dog is kind of sending them a memo, right, Lorena? That the dog's like, hey, but yeah, the dog doesn't get the memo that we're walking this exact route today in this amount of time. And how frustrating would that be? That's a really good point, Lorena. How frustrating would that be if your boss is expecting you to do something in a certain amount of time in a certain way, but doesn't tell you how to do it? I mean, I think that's like a common problem with dogs. But I think for me, pointing out to clients like, hey, you want your leash to be loose? Your dog is sniffing. Look at that loose leash. So what we could do is we could take some treats and toss them on the ground, encourage more sniffing, or just praise them for sniffing, get down on the ground, point out stuff on the ground, sniff with them. You can learn from Dr. Horowitz, his book, Sniffing with Your Dog. But I just think that's one great example of what we're talking about. The secret sauce of dog training is looking for what your dog is already doing, especially doggy things that are natural behaviors for dogs to do, and then see how we can encourage that more and focus on that more.
Fantastic. I love that, Allie. It just made me think of a blog post that I wrote a few years ago when I was pet sitting for a friend, originally a client who became an awesome friend, and I was pet sitting for them. And because I was used to walking my own dog and in my own environment, my own neighborhood, and we had our own patterns and things that he liked to sniff and look at, this was actually a whole new experience for me. And I got to see it brand new through her dog's nose, so to speak. And it was actually a very enjoyable experience because each time I took her for a walk, she would stop at the same places to sniff. And so I actually started to make a little, story in my head that the fire hydrant was Instagram and the specific mailbox was Facebook. And I was just watching her enjoy her time on her walk in this new environment, and just kind of thinking of it in that way. Like you said, who is the walk for and why are we going? So she inspired me to write a little blog post about it, and just, watching your dog and thinking about what they're actually getting when they're out there exploring, the information that they're receiving, the same way that we might scroll through social media.
You make me think about my pup as well. I do have an adolescent golden, so there's all sorts of stuff that comes with that. Just plain old adolescent dog is enough. But it's been said that when you get a dog, or actually when you get a puppy, you expect a certain level of chaos. And I like to say, embrace that chaos in the sense of go with it. I mean, let them be a dog about certain things, within reason, meaning don't let them get hurt. Don't let them get into something that's going to poison them or anything like that. But, and let them enjoy that experience. It takes a lot of pressure off of us. I think that so many clients, and I know that I used to think this way before I became a dog trainer, that I was supposed to get the dog and sort of jam it in that square peg, it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. And it's actually not the case at all. I mean, it's really, really good news for everybody that it's not necessary to make your dog into something that he's not. That's the last thing you want to do.
I think this is so, and apologies because there are tiny delays on this Zoom today, but I think what is so wonderful about this is that it's so simple and it's so easy to do. And it helps the relationship you have with your dog exponentially. So, it doesn't take a lot of energy. And I think in our busy lives, when we see so much information out there, and we think we have to do so much with our dogs, and we have to teach them this, and this, and that actually, when you boil it down to it, really focusing on building that good relationship through giving feedback of what the dog is doing well. And that can be as simple as you say, when the dog is, if you want your dog to stop pulling on the lead and your dog is just sniffing there and that's a nice loose lead. Wow. That's the moment when your dog just decides to settle themselves down. That's a moment just to give feedback. But it's like with anything, you're always going to focus more on the criticism than you are on the good things that people say about you. And I think that's what people do. But I also think for dogs, they are always, I'm not saying that everybody's dog does, but a lot of dogs are always blamed for their bad behavior. And even when you go and you do a session and you highlight the fact of this is the way we could stop the dog from doing this, and we can teach the dog to do something else. And it's kind of like a light bulb goes off in people's heads when you say, look, this is what you need to do. And it's that simple. And the more simplicity we can bring into the relationship we have with our dogs, the better. So we don't complicate it with too much stuff. Maya.
Yeah, I love that you brought up simplicity. And when I was hearing Lorena talk and Allie talk, I was thinking about how often we're asked, well, what should I teach my dog to do instead? I know I'm supposed to teach him to do something other than pulling, but what should I teach him to do instead? And how, as I've gotten better as a trainer, I have fewer stock answers to that, because the first thing I'm going to do is look and see what the dog is doing well now. Now, that might be sniffing. It might be some other behavior that they're offering now. And once we find that, we're just one click off a mutually agreeable solution. So one of the things that I've started asking myself when I make a training plan for somebody is it simple? Not only because simple is effective, but because it's one way to measure welfare. If I'm going for simplicity, I'm choosing things that are already in the guardian's repertoire and in the dog's repertoire, and I'm not having to start from scratch. And generally, I'm not saying that this is the only litmus test for welfare, but generally, if the dog is choosing to do it right now and is doing it a lot, that may be a preferred behavior for that dog. So I might be much more likely to choose something that he himself would choose. At least that's my thinking behind it, and why I don't go for teach this instead of that formulas anymore.
So let's say we do have some people on here in the chat, and thank you so much for asking your questions. Let's say you do have a dog that's jumping up a lot and jumping and jumping and jumping, and you cannot stop it, and it is driving you crazy. And you keep on telling your dog to stop, and you've tried some training stuff and it's not working. What do you do? Thoughts? Like, surely you have to teach your dog another skill of how to greet somebody. Really, should we be focused on, telling our dogs off, or should we teach them another skill? Should we really be asking, actually, even before we do that, why is the dog jumping up? But I think sometimes, again, people's frustration, hey, it happens to all of us, gets the better of them. And the quickest thing that they can do right there and then is to tell the dog to stop. And that might work some of the time and might not work others, but the person's got to try and do something. So let's take jumping up. How are you going to, it's all very nice of us to say, oh, let the dog sniff, or, let's mark a nice settle. But let's say we do have a real issue of the dog jumping. And there is nothing, that person has tried everything. And they're employing us for an hour to come in and stop their dog from jumping. What is the first thing that you all would do? Maya.
So I know this is going to sound like a squidgy answer, but I really feel like this is important. The very first thing I want to know is what is the picture for your perfect greeting from your dog in that position? What does it look like? Because so often, and I want to say too, I think, I'll say just for me, I have yelled at my dogs. I've been frustrated with my dogs. I think that there aren't any relationships that are as long lasting and as close. I mean, we share space all the time that never involve a moment of frustration. So I don't want people to feel like if they've ever done it, they're alone. But that's not training, right? That's just what comes out in the moment. That's probably not going to change tomorrow. And so to me, that's what wouldn't count as training. The next thing would be to say, well, what does it look like? What does a really good greeting look like? And break it down. Because once we have that list, we can start to check off, what does this dog know how to do on that list? Do they know how to look at a person? Do they know how to walk? I mean, some dogs move at a million miles an hour through their space all the time. Do they know how to find a treat on the ground? Do they know how to play with a toy? What exactly are we going to be using here? And once we make that list, sometimes we find that we have 30 skills on that list, but the dog already knows 25 of them. Other times we might find we only have 6, but the dog only knows 1. But until we have that picture of where we're going, we can't even start. We can't even decide what exactly we need to teach and what the dog already knows. And we can't do the thing that I like to do, which is to say, gosh, there are 50 skills on this list and this dog already knows 1. I just failed my dog training test. I need to find a different skill here or a different greeting pattern because that's really far off from what this dog is already good at. So that's my first thing that I like to do with guardians. After we all have a cry about getting frustrated sometimes. We all get frustrated.
We do. We do. And talking of patterns, you just talked about a greeting pattern. I always call them rituals. You know, people we have maybe that's the wrong word, but you know, we seek patterns in everything. We seek patterns in our life. We seek patterns in sound, for example. And when patterns get disturbed, it can be profoundly difficult, right? So when you are, what is their greeting pattern and how do you maybe build on that pattern?
It's interesting you talk about that, Vic, because my lovely new husband, so I got married in the last month.
Congratulations.
Created a ritual with his boys. He has 2 big, I'm talking 70-pound doodles that are very excited. And his ritual was when people would come over, he would get so fed up with their behavior that he would give them bully sticks or digestible ones, whatever they were. And they would go chew on those, but they would also get very excited and they'd jump around and throw them around. But overall, it worked that they didn't jump on guests. And this became such a ritual that now when the door bell goes off or whatever, they jump like crazy and they get so excited. And if you don't give them one, it's a problem. And they almost get more excited, more ramped up because they know it's going to happen. And I don't think that this ritual is working for them anymore because now we're taking the bully stick and we're bouncing off of people's chests with them in our mouths. So I don't think this ritual is working for us anymore. So I'm thinking rather than ramping up, I'm wondering if we need to calm down. So I like to look at what happens before and then also what happened. Of course, with dogs, it's about consequences, what happens after. But I wonder, because I've recommended to clients before, if your dog's jumping, throw a bunch of food on the floor. And the dog will go to the floor and you do it before the dog jumps. So the dog is running towards your guests and you just toss some treats on the floor. And honestly, for a lot of clients, that worked really well. But for other dogs, that gets them so excited because now they know that food is coming. And then once they eat all of it, then what? So I do think that now we're starting to think about how do we get them to calm down ahead of time. So I like to think about what happens before. Is there something we can do that ramps them up before so they'll be calm after? Or is there a way that we can work on calm? And like Maya said, what does that look like? So what do they already know how to do? And how can we start to replace that?
Does this mean?
So what do you all?
So just the question I was going to ask, and Lorena, if you're going to just expand upon what was already said, the question I was going to ask was, that's great. But what can you teach? Is this whole thing? Should you not teach anything else? Are we saying that? I don't think we are saying that, but we're saying what comes even before. Lorena.
So it's also, going from what Maya was saying, understanding what skills they have, being creative and see, do they have a skill that isn't necessarily compatible with jumping up, right? So for example, say a dog that is, that might be like a terrier that it has little springs in his back legs and loves to jump up. But if that particular dog, for example, loves to chase after tennis balls, then something that you can start doing is the moment that you come in, you can start just rolling that tennis ball away from you, allowing the dog to go. And now you're doing something else. Now, yes, you do run the risk of getting them all amped up, but at the same time, you can also start using that for focusing exercises as well. So you can also then, as you continue on with the training, teach the dog to bring, when he brings the ball back to you, that he's got to sit, and you wait, and then you toss it again. Now the dog is thinking instead of just going all over the place. So yes, looking at the skills and how we can apply those creatively to make them do something different is also very helpful.
So that's great. And there are some really, really kind of fun things that you can do to almost sort of meet that energy, because a lot, if we're talking about jumping, a lot of energy is expelled. But what about that? As in, the energy's got to go somewhere, doesn't it? So if we are teaching our dogs at a time that is normally exceedingly exciting, somebody's come to the door, doorbell rings, yay. And there's massive adrenaline goes through the body, and the dog is jumping up and down, and there's so much energy. And we ask the dog to go to their mat, or we ask them to sit and look at us, or it might work. But in my experience, trying to inhibit behavior when there's so much energy flowing through the dog's body, well, that's a skill. And I think that's a skill that we humans aren't very good at. And now we've got great expectations for our dogs to be able to do that. So do we have and that's number one. Number two is is anything that we can teach meeting that dog's need? If the dog truly needs connection with the person coming in, or if the dog is actually quite worried about this new person coming in, how do we know what our dog's needs are, and how do we meet those needs? So energy and needs. Wendy.
To bring in the theme of Thanksgiving here, I'm just wondering, kind of thanking versus training. So sometimes, and I can just relate to my dog, who, for whatever reason, gets beyond overwhelmingly excited when I return. It's like I could have been gone 15 minutes, but thank God you're back, and he would he's whining and jumping and everything. And I have found that actually I give him a moment to collect himself, and then I thank him in a moment after he's sorted out. So I don't immediately engage with that. Give him a moment to actually self-regulate if possible. And then I thank him, when he's settled a little bit, thank you, good to see you, happy you're here. And I realize when a dog is really big, it's a little more challenging because they could knock you down in the meantime. But perhaps everybody else would, what do you think of thanking? Because that puts a different mindset almost to when you're responding.
Yeah, interesting. I thank my dog a lot for barking, actually, I have to say. I thank my Chihuahua for barking when the doorbell goes. Thank you, I say to her. Yeah, Ali.
Yeah, I've been thinking about thankfulness a lot over the past several years. I've done a lot of therapy, and I started to use it and recommend to my other trainers to use it with their clients. Of thinking, especially when you have a client that is really overwhelmed. I kind of feel in a similar situation myself. I'm rather overwhelmed with these 3 big dogs in this little apartment, and something that helps me is before every walk, instead of thinking, ugh, this is going to be terrible. He's going to pull me. I need to get some gloves on. Like, what else can I do to make this better? I stop and take a breath and I think about something that I'm really thankful for about this dog, or something that I know he does a really good job on this one walk. Like, I know he's going to do a great job. And I start the walk thinking, let's find something that he's doing really well. And you can even make a joke about the things he's not doing super well. Like, oh, that's not the thing that we're doing very well. But we do look for the thing that he does well. And I know with our boys, thinking about, I liked what we said about like the ramping up and ramping down, but these boys are really good at that. They're really good at going from 0 to 60. They're really good also at just passing out, maybe from being overtired. And so I'm grateful that they can do that. So part of my challenge now is to think about, how can I get that? They're really good at cuddling. They're almost like aggressive cuddlers, but like, and people do, if they come over to our house, they want to see them, because that's, otherwise we wouldn't have them over, because it's an experience. But how can we get them to go from at the door to cuddling? Because they are good at cuddling, and they do settle down really nicely once they're sitting with a person on the couch. So how do we get from this excitement, which is why I think that the bully stick was a bit of a problem, because it ramped us up and it put us in a different state of mind of cuddling. So it's one thing that I thought about, of how do we replace this with the ritual of door and chew versus door and cuddling. But I do think I'm thankful that they're good cuddlers. I'm truly thankful that they settle nicely on the couch and in the house eventually, even if it's not all the time. So Wendy, I like the thankfulness, and I've used that with clients in the past, especially clients that seem like they're down in a deep, dark hole. Of one thing we incorporated at VSA is we asked them the question, the consultation of, what do you like about what do you like about your dog? What's your favorite thing about your dog? And that's something that they tend to light up about, even though a lot of times in consultations, it's like, we talk about all the things that have gone wrong. I think it's important to talk even more, like Maya was saying, come up with a list of skills that the dog is doing right.
And when you do that, people are like, I mean, you see them all just immediately. You're coming there for a problem. And when you ask that question, it turns everything around, almost like a 180. And now people want to tell you about how amazing their dogs are. Maya.
Yeah, I really love this discussion of kind of going to what our individual dogs are good at. And something that you said, Wendy, made me want to even expand further, which is when you said, is it the difference between thanking and training? I want to push on it a little bit and say that understanding of training, where thanking isn't training and training isn't thanking, is a really narrow version of training that we do not have to accept, right? We don't have to go there. And I think part of what positive dog training has gotten much, much better at is understanding that the goal of any sort of thoughtful, mindful attention to interaction between dog and person, with an eye to change some of it, is to stop taking some set understanding of you will, or you must, or this is what the final product must look like, and calling that training. What you described to me, where you allow your dog time to settle after you come in, because you don't want to be in the middle of that yet, but you don't necessarily want to suppress that. That sounds like great training to me. I mean, and a great outcome for both of you. So, and same with what you were saying, Ali, like figuring out what your dogs are good at and going with that, I think often will get us also to solutions that are easy to maintain. Even if we get big behavior change right out the gate, if we had to really change our own behavior to get it, or really change our dog's emotion to get it, we have to make a plan to get that back into normal life. And if we just choose something that's happening or that's close to what's happening now, we may see slower change, but we may actually get a much more sustainable change in the long run too.
That might not all fix the sort of human desire for quick fixes. But I have to say, if you do something very simple and they see behavior change right away, well, then isn't that great? Isn't that just as powerful? And isn't that a better way to deal with things rather than telling your dog off all the time? And then if you have to build on that skill, isn't it better to spend a little bit of time building on that skill so that you have a lifetime of behavior that is acceptable and is safe rather than having to tell your dog off all the time? We are the gatekeepers. Our dogs rely on us 100% for their very survival, for their comfort, for their safety, and so that they can survive. We hold the keys. We can be the masters that we want to be. We can, be violent. We can tell them off all the time. I'm not saying that by telling dogs off we're being violent, but there are certain schools of thought out there that are much more punitive than what we do. But you can, and you have that power over your dog. And so I do think it's human nature, though, because of frustration and agitation and also sometimes fear and legitimate concern, that sometimes the default behavior is always to tell off and focus on what the dog is doing wrong, because it also can be embarrassing. I mean, think of the dog on the lead. I remember having my Labrador Sadie when she came to me at 5 years old. A quick break here to get a word from this episode's sponsor, the Victoria Stilwell Academy. Now, did you know that I have a school that teaches people to be dog trainers? I love It's Me or the Dog and my work as a dog trainer on television, but those of you who know me know that my true passion really lies with helping other people live their best lives with dogs. And I love seeing that truly magical transformation when that light bulb goes off with someone I'm helping with their dog. That's what it's all about. It's the secret sauce that pet professionals like me, who work with these amazing animals, that's what we all share. It's what makes being a dog trainer the most rewarding and enriching job I can imagine. It's why I love what I do. And it's also why I founded the Victoria Stilwell Academy, so that I could provide a roadmap to others who want to help dogs and the people who love them learn to do what they love doing at the highest level, that is, to become professional dog trainers. Earning a living working with dogs professionally, it's been a dream of mine for years. And that passion is what drives all of us at VSA to create courses that are specially designed to help adult human learners chase their dreams. Now, most people already know about our flagship dog trainer course, which provides both online only and in-person options. But did you know that we also offer both dog guardians and future professionals a fully refundable 10-hour online course taught by me and other awesome VSA faculty, and it's called the Fundamentals of Dog Training and Behavior course. Now, I know it's not the sexiest name, but it's one of the most dynamic learning experiences available to dog geeks, and it's a pretty awesome first step to see if learning with VSA is right for you. Now, as a Positively Podcast listener, you can use promo code PODCAST right now to get the Fundamentals course for 50% off. That is $150 value. So, take our course. Plus, we also have a couple of free starter courses. They're free, completely free, including a course called Building Your Dog's Confidence, which reveals the secret ingredient to a happy dog life. So, I encourage you to check out VSA today. As I said, we have courses for all levels of learners. So it doesn't matter whether you're a newbie with your first puppy or a grizzled vet already making a living as a pet professional. Visit positively.com/VSA to learn more and enroll in a free course. That is positively.com/VSA. We all want the best for our dogs, whether that means you taking home some key tips for your own dogs or adding the ultimate in professional dog trainer education. Visit positively.com/VSA today. VSA, it is the future of dog training. And now, back to the podcast. beautiful Labrador that a trainer friend of mine, Sadie lived with an elderly lady, and she passed away. And so she was homeless. And so a trainer friend of mine asked if she could come and stay with us and see if the dog would fit in our family. So the dog came over, and she was beautiful and gorgeous and absolutely wonderful with everybody. I mean, just wonderful, and with children as well. I mean, a dream dog until I took her outside. And when I took her outside, this dream dog, as we walked past the first dog, it launched like, I mean, it was like a bear at the end. Sadie was a big girl. She was a big, big dog, and launched like a bear. She was going to attack this other dog. Well, of course, I was terrified. I thought, my God, what have I got here? This dog is Cujo. And then, of course, I realized that, this is one of the reasons why she's doing this. She's so darn uncomfortable because she'd lived with an elderly lady. Her family had given this dog to their mother when her husband passed away. And they gave her 80-year-old mum a Labrador puppy. So, of course, Sadie was never taken outside. She was given so much love inside. But Sadie didn't have a lot of socialization with other dogs. So she didn't know what to do. And it was up to me to look at that and go, you are just so amazing in so many ways. But I'm also going to look at this behavior, and as terrified as I am that you're going to hurt somebody, hurt another dog, I have to value this behavior. It's part of our Brave course where we talk about BRAVE, V as in valued. We're saying we need to value the behavior that we don't want as much as the behavior that we do. Because by valuing it, I think we are giving it credibility. We are understanding or trying to understand the dog's perception of the world around and the dog's responses and how the dog feels. And once I understood that Sadie just didn't know what to do, then I could begin to build those skills. And it started very, very simply. But if I kept telling her off, I just wouldn't have got anywhere. We'd have just carried on like that. So I think by valuing the behavior that I didn't appreciate, I was able to understand and have more empathy for what I perceived she was going through. Allie.
I was going to say, I think Lorena raised her hand. I'll let her go. And then I was going to comment on some of the chat.
Okay. So reminds me, can I talk about Ted Lasso just a little bit?
Yes.
So that one part when he said that a big problem is when people, that it's easy to underestimate, or in this case, misunderstand, when we don't approach with curiosity. And really training ourselves to view our dog's behavior with curiosity. Okay, why is this dog, what's happening? Why is this dog reacting or overreacting to our, from our point of view? And going down that route, that goes right into what you just said, Victoria, with empathy. And that is such an important part of really just cementing that good relationship that also leads into helping them overcome the issues that they have. And yes, it's just really, really important to value the misbehavior in the sense of, okay, this is teaching me something about you. Let's see where we go from there.
Yeah, I'm getting to learn how you respond to things. I'm getting to learn how you might perceive the world. And I'm seeing now that you don't feel safe. And that's why you're not doing it to be nasty. You just don't feel safe. Wow. Okay, I've got to do something and try and find ways that I can make you feel safe. Because really, at the end of the day, that's it. Violence doesn't work for dogs. Violence is actually not good for dogs or for humans. Because when we're violent, We actually put ourselves at risk of injury. And if you're injured, you can't function well enough. And that wolf pack, I know dogs aren't socialized wolves, but that wolf pack, or those dogs, those feral dogs out there, they would rather do anything that they possibly could to avoid violence, because injury could mean in certain respects, death. Or it means that you're not going to be an effective hunter. Your leg is damaged. You can't move as fast. You don't get that prey. Therefore, you don't eat. Therefore, you die. So actually, this whole idea of, the dog is nasty and violence is not normal. Anyway, so I think I just stopped everybody by saying that. Ali.
No, I think I often like to remind people that violence is probably not the answer, especially when dealing with someone that you can't communicate with using common language of describing why you're doing this. But I do think, looking at the chat, we've had some great summaries of what we had. Someone come in late and talk and ask what was the topic. And I, as a instructional designer, I love seeing people just describe it in their own words. And we've had some beautiful descriptions. But one that inspired me was Catherine's, in saying that she, as a trainer, when she's looking at clients, she emphasizes that the main goal is about a successful relationship and not perfection or obedience. So we've also had a lot of questions here, which I think reflect many questions of clients, is how do I fix this? How do I fix this? How do I fix this? Which is what we're focusing on. And yet, yes, somebody said, so is this more about our mindset or clients' mindsets, or just about physically doing something? And I think it is both. It is both. Focus on what your dog is doing well. What can you be thankful for? And maybe thank your dog for that. Look at the skills that your dog has. Because Maya, one thing I think about is some people say, well, why don't you just put your dogs behind a door? They actually don't have that skill. They cannot sit quietly behind a door. They will paw at it until they potentially get through the door. So that's not an option. So I have to look at what can they, and now I'm a dog trainer. Can I teach my dog to do that? Yeah, I could. Any of us in this group could teach your dog to do something. And I'm sure if you hire a dog trainer, we can teach dogs to do almost anything we want. The question is why? And should we? And is that actually going to fulfill the need for the help? Is that actually going to help? Because kind of like violence does work, but it works in the short term, doesn't necessarily work in the long term. And it can also hurt you in the short term and the long term. But we think about sometimes positive training is the same way. I can use treats sometimes to get your dog to do things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that A, you're going to be able to use it, and B, it's going to be able to serve you and your dog in the long term. So what we're focusing on here is thinking about not even necessarily positive training has kind of gone, like Maya said, this replace, what can I do instead of, and that's been great thinking. And it's kind of along the spectrum, and it's progressing from punishing, of course, but now we're starting to think of, okay, we could replace it with something, but also why is the dog doing this? And is there anything the dog already does that would serve all of us and that would serve the dog's need? And I think thanking your dog for that life lesson of, oh my gosh, that's so much simpler. Could I teach my dogs to settle behind a door? Yes, we're working with vet behaviorists. We're working with, anxiety medication. We're working with relaxation protocols, but that was a lot of work. And I tell you what, my husband is not super keen. He says he's super keen. And when it gets down to it, life gets in the way. And I know that, but it's difficult. It's this huge protocol. It's a 2-page protocol, y'all, that he got. And he looks at this as a lay person and is like, oh, I don't know how to do this. So instead, to give him something that his dogs are already doing, one thing to do is so much easier for him. So I think that's what helps that we can help our clients and help our dogs by focusing on, rather than teaching them this whole new thing they have to learn, this whole new skill, what are they already doing that can make our lives easier as well?
We talk about we talk a lot about the broccoli and the brownie batter. Ali, can you describe it? And then I have I want to show you something.
Yeah. So at VSA, we often talk about the broccoli and the brownie batter. And that came from the wonderful Christina Wagoner, who was our previous student enrollment coordinator. And she would say that you can get kids to eat their broccoli if you put it in the brownie batter. So what that means is that you get the benefits of the vegetables, but it tastes like brownies. And so we do that with our clients as well, that clients may not want to hear, hey, by the way, this thing that really annoys you, I could change it if I were a dog trainer. But in reality, there is no magic wand that's going to make it perfect in the long run. So what we really want to do is you just want to embrace who your dog is and then try and find a happy medium. That's what we really want to tell them. That's the broccoli. But how do we bake that in a brownie that's easily digestible and simple for them to do? So that's what we mean by broccoli and the brownie batter.
And I don't know whether she, this is not a plug here, but it's this deceptively delicious. So if you kind of have difficulty with that kind of concept of understanding that, there is this book. It was written by Jerry Seinfeld's wife called Deceptively Delicious. And it's a book really written for parents of kids or people who have kids that really don't want to eat the broccoli or eat the good stuff. And so you can like make, I don't know, there's blueberry muffins, but of course there's blueberry in the muffins. And then there's, you can do like eggs, and then inside the eggs, you actually put some cauliflower so that they're getting their cauliflower with nicer stuff. Or the main thing is, you put the cauliflower in the brownie, in the batter, so they're getting all of that goodness, but it looks like a brownie. And it's the same sort of thing. I used to use this book all the time. My kid, she actually ate pretty well. She was not a very picky eater, but I just really loved the concept of this book of like, how can you make things really yummy and tasty and simple that kids are gonna like? And hey, tonight it's pizza. And like, oh, yummy. But actually in that pizza, you got some really good stuff. And the kid doesn't really know it, but he got some really good stuff. So that's kind of what we mean by the broccoli and the brownie batter. And truly, it's simple. And now, does this work with aggressive behavior? Does it? And I have to say, well, yeah, 100% it does. 100%, because we're doing exactly the same thing. If the dog is aggressing in any kind of way, one of the worst things you can do is to tell the dog off, because for whatever reason, you're just sort of fighting fire with fire. You might get a cessation of behavior for a little bit because you've implemented some kind of punishment that, oh my God, it works. And wow, isn't that positively reinforcing for you? Because it brings you such relief the behavior stopped. However, you are merely putting a Band-Aid on it. And Band-Aids, as you know, or plasters, they come off. So what can you do? How can we use this with dogs that are showing aggressive behavior? And sometimes this behavior can be dangerous towards people. I don't see that there's any difference using the same kind of formula with dogs that jump up to say hello and dogs that are showing aggressive response in some kind of way. Because at the end of the day, it's all about trying to value that behavior like I valued Sadie's behavior. And believe you me, it was intense. And she meant business, and she was big, and she might have been a Labrador, but my goodness, she was intense with her response. I use the same response as I do with her, with other dogs that are showing aggressive behavior, as I do with that dog jumping up. And it's to value the dog's experience and why the dog is doing it, and to find out why. And then to start building on that. What is my dog good at? What can I find in her, even though this behavior really stresses me out and it's dangerous and I've got to change it really fast? What can I do to actually get to the point where I can appreciate the behavior, understand her, and then start embracing her for the things that I like and that is good for her too? Maya.
Yeah, I love that we're asking the big question of the big A, right? Can we really be this positive even when we're dealing with serious behavior? And what you're saying about Sadie is just making me think that, what makes aggressive behavior scary to us is the real risk, the risk of injury. As you said, you worried about another dog, you worried about perhaps yourself or another person. And I don't want to downplay that. I almost want to say, when we take the dog's perspective and we say every behavior that they're doing is for a reason, they want something to happen in their environment, we should take jumping as seriously as we take aggressive behavior, as opposed to looking at it in the other way. And when we're talking about our dogs, focusing on what our dogs get right, it's not just a thought exercise, right? And maybe that's not been clear yet, at least for me. It's not just that my dog is doing whatever he's doing, and in 10% of the time he's doing stuff I really like, and 90% he's doing stuff I don't like, but I'm just going to focus on the 10. It's also, I'm looking at that 10 and going, okay, what is happening when he's doing that? How can I make those conditions happen more for him? So, for instance, for the walking and pulling, you might go, okay, maybe it feels like my dog is pulling for 100% of the walk at the same intensity. He's probably not, though. So when it starts to look a little bit more like the walk that I want, well, what's going on? Did he just have 20 minutes of exercise? Could I do that beforehand? Or is it that we're in a quieter spot? Oh, I just woke up my dog. I'm getting animated by it. So those kinds of things can make it so that we're not just noticing when our dogs are getting it right, but we're really taking their behavior seriously. And we're trying to create those conditions under which they can get it more and more and more right. And that would be especially true with a dangerous behavior. We might want to manage it. So we're only putting the dog in the conditions under which they're showing us behavior that is an alternative to the scary aggressive behavior. Again, focusing on what they can do instead, but really dialing up that, changing the environment so they get lots of opportunities to show us those other behaviors.
Lorena.
I think that is one of the least appreciated things, that how we can manage the environment to help our dogs, and how in many cases, a simple change in environment can have the result of that annoying behavior just not happen anymore, depending on the situation, obviously. But yes, the environment is key, because again, you're right, Maya. Behavior just never happens in a vacuum. There's always they're trying to instigate a change in the environment for a particular reason, So yes, thinking about the environment, and that's what comes into play when we're talking about management of behaviors. It's really setting up the dog to succeed. So, but before we can do that, we got to pay attention to see, all right, where are they succeeding? What's going on when they are succeeding? Paying attention to that and seeing how we can recreate that as best we can.
And it means we have to change our behavior sometimes, and we have to change our rituals. So our patterns, they have to change. I can't walk Sadie on the pavement next to the dog park. I can't take her to a dog park, number one, but I can't walk her where we have to walk really close to another dog. I just can't do that. Not right now. So I have to now change the patterns, change my expectations. And I have to say, I wanted this dog to be a therapy dog. Mind you, I was so upset. I was like, my God, I've taken this dog on, and look, there's no way I can do therapy work with this dog. And it was like I was mourning. I had such expectations. Well, you know what? I had to change those expectations. It would have been too much, especially if she was doing therapy. She'd been great with kids and great with people. But if she'd have gone to a hospital, for example, and there were other dogs there is no way. And I thought, well, this would be too much pressure on her. That's not fair. So I kind of like put my sadness aside and said, okay, I'm going to focus on what this dog does really well. And I'm going to change her environment so I don't have to put her in a position where she feels so uncomfortable. And then I'm going to teach her different skills. We're going to have fun. We're going to play. We're going to loosen up. We're going to be fluid because she was so tense, especially out on the road. Hypervigilant, looking. But we're going to work on that first, just going out and enjoying being outside again. Does that mean I have to then put her in my car? I can't take her straight out onto the street. I have to put her in my car and go walk 5 minutes away in a quieter place? Yes. Is that a pain? Yes. Do I have time? No. But you know what? I got a dog, so I have to. And so we got into this new pattern. And by starting her off in this new pattern, we got to a point, few months down the line, where Sadie could have some doggy friends and start walking with some doggy friends. But if I'd have just put a shock collar on her or put a prong collar on her, and I see it outside my house, there's a walking track right outside my house. I see people, it's mostly these young women, I should say, but they're walking along and they got their remote control in one hand and they've got their perfectly behaved dog and they're very proud of themselves. And you see them pressing that warning button as that dog is nearing. You see that dog sort of like look away. Fine. Okay. If you want to train your dog like that, I'm sorry for it, but I don't want the sword of Damocles always hanging over my dog. I don't want that fist right there ready to have a pop at my dog if my dog does something that I don't like. I was able to teach Sadie, you don't have to, it's okay. You don't have to engage with other dogs. I've got your back. And by the way, we've got some posse here that we can walk with. Here's your group. And it changed her life. And it also gave me, as that person that, is telling everybody else what to do, it also really checked me. And I went, okay, I don't have that perfect dog, because what is perfect? There's no such thing as perfect. But I don't have that dog that I really wanted. I have this dog that I believed came into my life because I needed her. And Kamal Fernandez, a wonderful trainer on the Dog Academy, he says, you don't always get the dog you want, you get the dog you need. And I was like, no truer words were ever spoken. Does anybody have, well, let's just change tack a little bit, because it is Thanksgiving. And for those of you in the UK or other countries, Thanksgiving is a time when we get together with families, with friends, and we give thanks for the things that we are thankful of. So I just want to ask the team, and maybe start with Laura, of like, what are you thankful for the life that you have with your dog, or in your work or your job? Or
what I'm thankful for is, because I do dog walking in the day, I get to spend all day with him, and he's just like my little companion, my little buddy. He's a little sausage dog, so he just trots along by my side, and just watching him with his friends playing, it warms my heart. Seeing him doing what he loves every day, socializing. Yeah, that's what I love.
I love that, Laura. Jamie?
I don't know if it's perfectly on topic, but I know one of the biggest things that I've been thankful for, even just since finding you, was learning that I didn't have to hurt my dogs to teach them the things that help them function in our world. And so I thought I had a great bond with my dogs before, and it has gotten exponentially better. My boy, who is not a snuggler, is now a snuggler. My girl's hypervigilance has come down dramatically. It's been very nice to be able to help them feel safer.
I love that, Jamie. That's great. And you mentioned that was such an important word, safety, that we all need to feel comfortable. Wendy?
I love the joy that my dog saw specifically, and he's right down here right now. And I love seeing Maya's pup there too. but the joy, I mean, because they don't hide it. If they're upset, like Jamie was saying, the dog tolerates certain things and he would get by. But when they really feel good, it just it emanates from them, and so that washes over you. I just think it's beautiful. I love that.
Fantastic. Maya.
This is very specific, but it's been happening a lot in the last couple of days. I love that my dogs come and tell me when they see something they're interested in. And I just love being included in that. So I think many of us have had this experience where your dog will come over and give you that meaningful look, and you'll go, well, what is it? Show me. And then you'll go look at it together, whatever it is, a squirrel out the window or a toy that's underneath the sofa or whatever it is. Sometimes they want something, but sometimes they just want to share attention together. And it's one of those moments where I just feel like there's something about the dog-human bond that is ancient and that I'm so grateful that I get to participate in, and that my dogs are willing to let me in on too.
Isn't that amazing, Maya? I know exactly what you mean. It's like, here we are living with this completely different species, and yet we're in sync.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Ali.
I need to say something about my new boys because I need to practice gratitude with them. But I will say I'm very thankful that they have kind of been brothers. We don't call them brothers. They're brothers to Klaus, my dog. So you said nobody has a perfect dog. I was like, well, I have a perfect dog, but no, he's not perfect, but he's pretty great. And I appreciate him even more having these boys. But despite their highs and lows, they do love Klaus, and Klaus loves them and gets excited to play with them and greeted them with more excitement after I came back from my wedding and honeymoon than he did myself. So there's that. So I'm thankful, but I'm also thankful for positive training in that it gives us permission to comfort our dogs, because these boys need a lot of comfort. And I'm grateful that they have started to come to me for comfort over Adam, my husband. And so it's exciting. It's exciting to be needed, but also I'm thankful that I can comfort them instead of blaming them or having to push them away. So it's nice.
Yeah, they're not easy. I mean, they're not easy dogs. These are big, big boys, aren't they?
Yes. And they love hard. They love really hard. Lots of elbows.
Yeah.
Lots of knees. But I am grateful for them to be able to calm, because I think in some other training thoughts of, schools of thought, we don't want to comfort. We'll reinforce that feeling, that you think but that's not the case. And being there for them has made a difference in their lives. So I'm grateful that I can be there for them.
Lorena.
I am grateful. I'm going to say for two things. First, that crazy Cromanian, I guess, at some point, who decided to look at a wolf and say, let's see what we can do with this. Crazy as that individual was, thank you, because the results have been amazing. And I think all of humanity, I think it's probably a very big reason why we as a species are still around, is thanks to them. The other thing too is that when it comes to my dogs, I'm thankful for them to remind me to not take life so seriously. To Wendy's point, just the joy that can emanate from them, and just in the simplest situations, and just that bubbling of joy, of just enjoyment and just being present. It is something that is, as I get older, it's harder to have in my life, and to remind myself to be, more present like that. And they're just absolutely fantastic at being my teachers in that sense. And very, very grateful for that.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming on today and spending time and sharing such wonderful advice. And I want to say thank you to you for really helping change the world for dogs and the people that love them. And I want to thank everybody for listening today. For you guys that are watching on Facebook or join on the webinar or listening on the podcast, really do appreciate your dedication and your passion and listening to advice and being open to taking advice. Even sometimes maybe you don't even agree with it, or you have a different way of doing things. The fact that you're here and the fact that you are taking the time to learn more about your dog is amazing. And so I just want to thank you for that. I also want to thank my dogs for being great teachers, for teaching me patience. I am a carer now to my elderly dog, especially my 16-year-old girl who has kidney disease, and we don't know how much longer we have with her. But she's teaching me patience. And, I have to lift her a lot and her legs are a bit stumbly, but my goodness, she still wants her food and she still barks at me for it. And so I'm like, okay, girl, you can do what you like, because I'm going to value that behavior and I'm going to feed you. I'm going to reinforce your barking, because I just, I thank every day that she's alive. And she came to me when she was 11 years old. She came to me because she'd been found in a hot car, and it was 140 degrees on the dashboard. And she'd been rescued along with another Shih Tzu. And of course, the person who had her before me came back to our car and argued that actually the dogs hadn't been in there that the dogs had only been there for 20 minutes. Well, actually, she didn't come back for 2 hours. So my friend got them out, and then of course emergency services came. And so the person who had my dog before me was, and I had I don't know who she is, and I definitely wasn't around for this, but the dogs were taken into the shelter whilst the case went to court, and then this woman was found guilty and she wasn't allowed to keep animals. So then the dogs were homeless, and then one of them, I guess the other one was adopted, but Bella came to me when she was 11, and I've had her now for 5 years. I don't know. I think we're talking weeks now. But I have to say that I'm very thankful for her and everything she's taught me in my life, and also sort of to be patient. I think children will teach you to be patient too. And because, well, they're not perfect, and neither are we. But our dogs will teach us that life lesson, which I think is really important. So thank you so much to everybody listening. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you again. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively podcast. For Victoria's online dog training courses, more information, and helpful dog training tips, visit Victoria's official website at positively.com. Get connected on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media as Victoria Stilwell, and follow her on Twitter at Victoria S. Learn to become a professional dog trainer with the Victoria Stilwell Academy at vsdogtrainingacademy.com. And be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps you and your dog live your best life together, positively.